Hi, I'm Michael David and I look after the pump program here at CSI. In this video series so far we've covered things like what kind of process parameters to consider when you're specifying a pump. We've also covered how your process can impact seal selection and seal life. In this video we're going to talk about the kiss of death, or water in the gearbox. Now, we've said before that almost all of the pump problems that people have are inlet side problems, and that's still true. But for positive displacement pumps specifically, the largest cause of death, as it were, the largest thing that causes a pump to fail when it's a positive displacement pump is when water gets itself into the gearbox. There's a lot of ways water can find its way into the gearbox. None of them are good, and all of them lead to premature death for the gearbox. So how big of a deal is it though? We estimate the pumps that we see here, 8 out of every 10 PD pumps that we have in our facility for repair have failed due to water in the gearbox. We figured this out based on the condition of the gearbox when we open it up. There are certain telltale signs that you can see on gears and on bearings that appear when there is excess water in the gearbox. So how does it get in? Just imagine your home. Your home has windows and doors, and when it rains outside, you find yourself closing all those windows and doors because you don't want the water to get in. A pump's gearbox is similar in the way that there are many points of ingress. There are clean out plugs, there are zerks, there are seal plates. There are many different places where the water can find its way in when it's given the opportunity. So just like you close up all the windows and doors in your home, the pump's gearbox need to make sure that you're A, not introducing more water on it or near it than you absolutely have to, and B, that you have all of those points of ingress tightened up to the best of your ability. So why is it a problem though? Well, you may not know that as little as 1% of water in the oil for your gearbox can reduce your life expectancy for your bearings by up to 90%. That's a tremendous loss of life for those bearings and for the gearbox in general. And it doesn't take a lot of water. It's fractions of a percent of water versus the oil in the gearbox is too much for the oil to withstand. And so it starts causing premature degradation and premature failure of those bearings and of the gears themselves. So the points of ingress are problematic based on a couple of reasons. Not only are they, in some cases, there are a lot of them, but also sometimes your process, your customer's process, means they are exposed to more water, either through their cleaning process, through their washdown process, or just through the general environment that the pump exists in. That means it will see more water than is necessary in some cases, or just has to be planned for in a different way. So what does it look like as it starts to fail? When we open these gearboxes up, we see some hydrogen embrittlement, we see some erosive wear. All of that is just fancy words to say we see the bearings aren't being lubricated correctly. We see the gears aren't being lubricated correctly, not because there wasn't oil in there, but because what's happened is there's too much water now in the oil, and that oil is losing many of its properties that were helping the pump or the gearbox be successful in the beginning. What happens when the gearbox fails is those bearings start to go. You start to have wobble in the shaft from the gearbox to the wet end, which will cause your seals to fail early, and in some cases will even cause those lobes or rotors inside of the pump housing to come in contact with the casing, certainly causing damage, and in some cases causing extreme failure. Well, we know it's a problem, but how do we get around it, or how do we help the problem? So when we talk to customers about what they can do to help, we talk to them about their cleaning habits. Sometimes it's as little as changing how long they're using a high pressure sprayer, or even changing the angle that they use the high pressure sprayer at, because what we're trying to do is coach them and teach them what it would be like to not try to force as much water into these tight spots as humanly possible. A lot of times they don't realize they're doing it, and so some of these gentle reminders or coaching can go a long way towards increasing the expected life of the gearbox. Some other concerns are environmental. As I mentioned before, if the area that the pump has really high humidity, there might be just a lot of humidity or water in the air, so sometimes that is largely unavoidable. Then we start really talking about how often are you checking the oil and how often are you changing the oil. Some manufacturers, the timeline is as low as 250 hours of operation for changing that oil. And for some manufacturers, the timeline can be as high as 2,000 or 3,000 hours of operation for checking or changing the oil. But in every case, it's going to come down to the customer's specific requirements, the customer's specific process. What we look for is you can check the oil rather simply. You can tell if it starts to look cloudy or hazy. And anytime you're seeing that degradation, it's time. Whenever you notice the oil is cloudy or hazy, it's time to change it because it means you have some water in the gearbox and some water is too much water. So I'd like to leave you in saying there's no such thing as too little water in the gearbox. Check the oil, check it often. Of course, manufacturers have recommended intervals in between checks, but every process is different, just like every customer is different. That oil needs to be checked based on their conditions and based on their anticipated life. It may not last as long in some locations as it would in others, and it's a really simple check by looking at that sight glass and checking to see if the water, if the oil itself is hazy or milky looking. It won't look the same as when they put it in. So as always, if you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to CSI. You can reach us at 417-831-1411 or find us on the web at csidesigns.com.